February 2025. The React team published a blog post announcing that Create React App was officially deprecated. The tool had been the standard starting point for new React projects since 2016. It would no longer receive updates. The replacement guidance was direct. For client-side applications, migrate to Vite. For anything requiring server-side rendering, routing, or full-stack capability, adopt a framework. The first framework the guidance named was Next.JS. That moment captures the actual relationship between these two products in 2026. Next.js is not a competitor to React. It is a framework built on top of React that answers every question React deliberately leaves open. The decision is not React or Next.js. The decision is how many of those unanswered questions to resolve yourself, and how many to hand to a framework that has already resolved them on its own terms, attached to its own platform. Jordan Walk was an engineer at Facebook when he built the first version of React around 2011. The problem was specific. Facebook's newsfeed and ad systems updated constantly, and manually manipulating the document object model to keep the interface in sync with data was producing bugs faster than engineers could fix them. Walk's solution was declarative. Instead of writing code that described how to change the interface, write code that described what it should look like for a given state. React handles the rest. The tagline was precise enough to survive 13 years. User interface is a function of state. React was open sourced at JS Conf US in May 2013 to a skeptical audience. Mixing HTML-like syntax with JavaScript looked like a violation of best practice. The virtual DOM sounded like unnecessary overhead. Within a year, the skepticism had largely inverted. The component model was maintainable. The declarative approach held up at scale. In 2015, React Native extended the same model to mobile applications. February 2019. React 16.8. Hooks. The largest API change in the library's history. Use state, use effect, custom hooks for shared logic. Class components moved to legacy. Function components became the standard within 18 months. That is what React is. What it is not is equally important. Routing, a server layer, a build tool, state management. React provides none of these and has no opinions about which to choose. A developer who installs React alone gets a component model and a reactivity system. Stack Overflow's 2025 developer survey recorded React at 44.7% of professional developers, the most used front-end library in the world, with no built-in answer to where the application runs, how it navigates, or how it reaches production. Guillermo Rauch founded Zeit in 2016 with a specific observation. React had won the user interface layer, but deploying a React application that search engines could reliably read required assembling server-side rendering from scratch. Every team building a production React application was solving the same infrastructure problem independently. Next.js launched in October 2016 with a single pitch: zero configuration server-side rendering for React. By 2019, version 9 had added back-end routes inside the same project as the front-end. By 2020, version 10 had added image optimization and internationalized routing. In April 2020, Zeit rebranded to Vercel. The name change signaled a shift from deployment tool to cloud platform. The business model followed. Next.js is free and open source. Vercel monetizes through the deployment infrastructure, edge functions, analytics, and enterprise platform services built around it. In September 2025, Vercel raised $300 million at a $9.3 billion valuation. Next.js creates the developer base. Vercel captures the revenue. October 2022, version 13, the app router, React Server Components, the largest architectural change in the framework's history. A new model for routes, nested layouts, data fetching, and the boundary between server and client components. For teams already running on the original page's router, it created a migration decision with no comfortable timeline. May 2023, version 13.4 declared the app router stable. What Next.js provides in 2026 is everything. React leaves open routing, server rendering, build tooling via TurboPack, server actions, image optimization, and a managed deployment path. The answers are included: so is the framework's judgment about which answers are correct. The failure modes from both products in the research period are revealing because they are different in kind, not just in severity. React's documented problems between 2023 and 2026 are a category of ecosystem friction. React 18's strict mode began calling component functions twice in development, intentionally, to expose impure renders before concurrent features could do it instead. It was documented behavior. It still broke toggle logic that had worked for years. The exhaustive deps ESLint rule and the React compiler reached a state in January 2026 where they were giving contradictory advice to developers trying to follow both. Create React App, deprecated in February 2025, left thousands of existing projects without a supported path forward. None of these are core instability. All of them require work to resolve. Next.JS's documented problems in the same period are a different category. A caching bug in January 2024 that reproduced only on Vercel's own infrastructure while working correctly on every local machine, a router refresh function in version 15 that did not refresh data, a development performance regression introduced by upgrading for a security fix, a cache revalidation call in July 2023 that was silently ignored. These are production failures in a system complex enough that when something breaks, the problem can sit between the 4 caching layers without being immediately locatable. Stack Overflow. 2025, React at 44.7% usage, the most used front-end library, and among the most desired for hiring. Next.js, growing in use and simultaneously dropping in admiration across the same survey period. 2 different cost structures from 2 different architectural positions, 2 different kinds of failure to understand and manage. The choice between React and Next.js is a choice about where the complexity lives. It does not disappear with either option, it moves. React standalone places the complexity in the assembly. Routing library, state management pattern, build tooling, server strategy. Each requires a decision, and each decision becomes part of the code base's permanent surface area. A team that makes those decisions well and documents them builds something it understands completely. A team that makes them under deadline or inherits them from a previous developer carries decisions it may not fully understand. The hiring pool is the largest in front-end development. The ecosystem answers every question the library leaves open. The answers are not standardized, and standardization across a code base becomes the team's responsibility. Next.js places the complexity in the framework itself. Routing is the app router. Server rendering is React server components. Build tooling is TurboPack. Caching is 4 layers with different invalidation rules and a history of silent failures between 2023 and 2025. A team that learns the framework thoroughly builds on a complete and well-documented foundation. A team that does not fully understand the caching model can ship bugs that work correctly in local development and fail in production, specifically on Vercel's infrastructure. For a team building a standard production application with SEO requirements, server rendering, and no appetite for assembling the stack from scratch, Next.js answers the questions. The costs are the caching model, the gravitational pull toward Vercel, and the vigilance required at each upgrade. For a team building something that does not fit the framework's conventions, or that needs to own every architectural decision for compliance, portability, or long-term maintainability, React standalone is the correct starting point. The assembly cost is real and ongoing. So is the control. Next.js answers the questions React declines to ask. The answers come attached to a platform.